The new report out showing that despite record profits from the pandemic, pharmaceutical companies still continue to hike their prices up of life-saving medicine while paying lobbyists at the same time to kill any legislation to rein them in. So now, this is according to an article by Common Dreams. They said that major pharmaceutical companies in the US had recently hiked the prices of nearly 870 prescription medications during the first month of 2022, as Republicans and conservative Democrats, flush with cash from lobbyists, continued to block legislation that would be aimed at reining in that system. So now, let me give you some context here. So look, the original version of Build Back Better had a provision in there that was pretty popular with not only the American people, but also progressives and Republicans as well. That pretty much the majority of the American people supported allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. So that would have lowered prices for everybody. Now, that would have also caused Big Pharma to lose out on a lot of potential profits, which is why, of course, Big Pharma used their lobbying power, which, by the way, they massively outnumber. The amount of lobbyists per lawmaker, I believe, is about 3. So for every lawmaker, there are 3 lobbyists to that 1. And pharmaceutical companies are by far some of the largest campaign contributors, if not the largest campaign contributors, in Congress. And so it's no surprise that that provision in Build Back Better, along with the rest of the bill, by the way, was just completely destroyed. It's dead. It's never going to pass. It's gone. So now, let me give you some more details here. This is from the Wall Street Journal. They said over the same period last year, drug makers also raised prices by an average of 4.5% on 893 different drugs. There were large price increases. AmerisourceBergen's Blue Point Laboratories, a seller of generic drugs, more than doubled the price of the cancer chemotherapy drug cisplatin to $30. Oh, but there's more. Excellent Pharmaceuticals raised their price of its generic lisinopril to treat high blood pressure by a total of 536%, going from a range of $6.17 to $549.85, depending on the dosage and package size. Unbelievable, but no, actually totally believable in our system. This is pharma bro shit. This is exactly what everyone was trashing Martin Shkreli for doing. And these companies, excellent, apparently they feel emboldened enough to take a common drug, a cheap drug to produce, and to jack it up by 536%. Disgusting. And of course, they're doing it because they can. And maybe they assume they have some goodwill, Big Pharma themselves, because of the life-saving vaccine. But let me just note that on the vaccine, taxpayers already paid for it. We paid for the development. The research on the vaccine, and I'm talking about COVID-19, and generally most, if not all vaccines, were all developed with public money. Then these corporations, the pharmaceutical companies, they come in and they patent troll, and they buy up these patents from the government, and then jack up the prices. And they hold on to these patents and make sure that generic versions cannot be developed in order to, try to stifle competition. That's when that should be the major pushback against the pharmaceutical industry. It's the profit model of greed. It's not the medicines that they make. That's not the problem. The problem is charging all of this money for life-saving medications in order to make a profit. The privatization, the profit margins in our healthcare system, in our pharmaceutical industry, is abhorrent. It's absolutely gross. Now, Senator Bernie Sanders, called that greed out. Here's what he said about this, particularly, quote, There's something profoundly wrong in America when a company like Exelon can raise the price of generic drugs to treat high blood pressure by 536% to as much as $550. How many more Americans have to die and suffer before Congress has the guts to end this greed? Well, look, sadly, they're paid not to care. And of course, Bernie Sanders knows this more than anyone, which is why, of course, he's railed against that lobbying, that corporate money in politics, or at least that corporate greed in our healthcare system. So let me give an example of that greed. Representative Scott Peters, Kurt Schrader, and Kathleen Rice, old Democrats, as well as Senator Bob Menendez, guess what they did? They worked to kill any reform when it came to drug prices. So now, look, Republicans, the reason I don't mention Republicans is that they all don't want prescription drug reform. Now, they say they do. Oh, prescription drugs, it's too expensive, too expensive. I'm going to do something about this. And then all the Republicans vote against legislation that would allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies. And of course, they do so with the help of the corporate Democrats. And so that's why I'm pointing out the corporate Democrats more than Republicans. Because they, have tried to convince people that no, the Democrats are on the side of the people against this corporate greed. When in reality, again, you've got people like Bob Menendez, Scott Peters, and the rest that are massively in favor of this greed, this corporate greed model. In fact, as Kaiser Health News reported in October, as congressional Democrats worked throughout 2021 to craft drug price reform plan aiming to fulfill one of their long-standing campaign promises, and this has been a promise for a long time, by the way, the pharmaceutical industry delivered the cash to key lawmakers with quote-unquote surgical precision. Scott Peters received the most money of any member of Congress with $63,900 in contributions in the first half of the year. The outlet found next in line was Senator Robert Menendez, who accepted $49,300, the most of any senator this year, despite not facing re-election until 2024. So that was bribe money. There's no other way that no other thing that you can call it. Bribes. We pay you, and you do our bidding. It's exactly what happens. So now, the article also adds, Democrats' effort to cap insulin costs in the U.S. also faced intense opposition from the pharmaceutical industry, as Stat reported last week. Insulin giants Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk boosted their lobbying spending as Democrats eyed pricing reform. And so, as a result, guess what? We're not getting any reform. There will be no reform. And again, all you have to do to figure out why, this is not a complicated question. No, it's you follow the money. It's always about the money. It's about the lobbying. Look, these companies, they grease the politicians, and guess what? The politicians then will do whatever they want. This is not difficult. Unless you're mainstream media, which apparently thinks that money in politics has no bearing at all on the way a politician votes. Can you imagine that, being so just incredibly brain dead as to think, oh, no, the senator got all this money, Menendez from the pharmaceutical industry, and then voted down any changes to, make prescription drugs more affordable. I can't figure out why. I don't know, and I don't understand. Oh, why isn't he helping, lower prescription drugs? Or when they talk about Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Principled mavericks, they called her. They called both of them. No, they're not principled. The only principle they have is making money. Since launching her political career, Kirsten Sinema has, her campaign committee has received more than $500,000 in donations from pharmaceutical companies. Some reports have her receiving even more than that, up to $750,000. No, this is not a lack of, by the way, they always talk about, it's bipartisanship. You got to be more bipartisan, right? No, this isn't a lack of bipartisanship that's the problem. When corporate interests align, there's never a lack of bipartisanship. No, they always come together. They always come together. The only times that they don't is when it comes to help regular people. And the only solution is to remove the money out of our political system. That is the root of evil. You want to eliminate the corruption, you want to drain that swamp, you got to drain the money first.